Hey everybody, welcome to week 2. We're learning to understand conservation psychology. My name is Josh O'Neill. I'm the founder of the Litter Club, and I've done some studies recently in regards to conservation psychology because I want to learn about why people litter. So this was the driving force. So last week and this is a 6-week series. Last week we looked at conservation psychology and where it sits within the psychology framework. So starting off at the highest level of psychology, understanding our human and environmental interactions and the scientific study of our actions, and then moving on all the way down through environmental conservation, which is natural and built-up environment, all the way to conservation psychology, which is where we're at today. So what we're going to look today is kind of the next level from psychology down, and that's around social psychology and environmental attitudes, how these are part of us, and how our social and societal makeup actually drives a lot of our actual attitudes towards the environment and what we can do. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is change behavior, and we want to embed those changes. So we have to work out from the highest level, understanding people from a scientific point of view, from a psychological point of view, all the way down through to conservation psychology. How can we engage more people in what we do, especially as non-profit organisations such as the Litter Club? So without any further ado, let me jump into the slide pack. Now, I do apologise, there's lots of words on there, but it's it does help us understand, and these will be available. This is available obviously on YouTube, etc. So this is understanding social psychology and the attitudes behind it. Now, if you didn't join me last week, I'm just going to run through really quickly who I am. I'm the founder of the Litter Club. We run weekly cleanups in Malaysia, Singapore, and also in Thailand as well. Beach cleanups, river cleanups, community gardening, anything we can become involved in. We also do training and awareness programs. And I'm also a member of the American Psychological Association, Department Division 34, and that looks specifically at environment, population, and things like conservation psychology. I am a certified green project manager. That's what I do in my other time, apart from running NGOs, and I'm a certified change management professional. So you can see I've tied a lot of stuff in that that works with psychology and how we promote change, effective change. I'm also a dive instructor, PADI at IDCS, which is a staff instructor. So I love getting underneath the ocean doing cleanups as well. And I'm also a Toastmaster, which is part of what I do and being able to present these topics. So thank you for sharing some time with me. Why do I do this? I always have to tell people why I do it and why I jump on each week or why I go out and pick up litter. And I do it to inspire others, basically, to change their conservational behavior. If they can see me doing it, maybe they will join me, and maybe in experiencing what I do, maybe they will also do that, and we will build a bigger community. But I also look at how I can help NGOs bring more engagement rather than just the people who are already actively engaged, like myself. So let's have a quick look here now at social psychology and environmental attitudes. So social psychology, talking too fast again, is the study of how individual or group behavior is influenced by the presence and behavior of others. So this is around about social norming. This is about how we interact with each other, but also how having others around us may impact what we do. So the major question that social psychologists look at is how and why people's perceptions, so what they're perceiving, and their actions are influenced by environmental factors, so what's happening in the environment rather than just nature, such as social interaction. What do we do, or what are we forced to do, or what is our perception of having to do something because we're in an environment with others? So environmental attitudes looks as a crucial construct in environmental psychology. That's another level down, not quite at conservation psychology, but environmental psychology, looking at the built-up environment as well as our natural environment, are a psychological tendency expressed by evaluating the natural environment with some degree of favour or disfavour. So do we like what we see in nature, or do we not like what we see? What is that part of? And then how does that then make us interact and allow us to interact with others around our social norms, what we believe is right and what we believe is wrong, what we then do depending upon that. Remember, an attitude is actually an attitude, not a behavior. So environmental attitudes, let's look specifically at this. So environmental attitudes, favorable or unfavorable evaluations of our environment. So remember, this is built and natural environment. So we can have the effect, so that's our emotional response to the attitude object. So if we love a koala bear, or if we hate a frog, etc. So we can have an affect. We can have a cognition, belief associated with that. So snake is bad, it'll bite me and kill me. Koala bear is lovely, it's cuddly and warm, which is actually not true because they can be quite aggressive. But then the behavioral intent, so then a person's planned course of action, I might stay away from that, or I might do this, I might do it wrong. If I bring it back to a litter club point of view and from a waste point of view, the emotional response to the attitude object, which would be the litter, so that annoys me, I don't want to do it. My belief associated with it is that nobody else should do it either, and then my course of action would be to pick it up. So if you look at some of the things that we might say, and that this just breaks it down a little bit, it's the climate is changing, that is a belief, yeah, so, and also climate change is caused by carbon emissions due to human behavior. Again, that's a belief, that's something that we hold in ourselves, that's cognition. If we look at, I worry that climate change will cause problems for future generations, that's an effect. So that's the emotional response to the attitude object. And then I want to do something to prevent climate change from happening. And I'm going to install energy efficient light bulbs in my home to help. These are intent, these are behavioral intent. This is what I intend to do. So let's have a think about it. Do attitudes predict behavior? And the answer to that is a resounding no, they do not predict behavior. My attitude could be that I'm very against litter and I never litter in my life. However, I'm out of the park and I've had my lunch, my car is back outside the park this way, and I can't see any rubbish bins around. And I want to throw my litter because I don't want to take it back in the car. So I do see a rubbish bin way over this way. And I think, oh, you know what, that's too far to walk. It's a hot day, I just want to get back in the car, and I don't want to take it because I've just had fish curry. And I know it'll smell my car out, and I've got to go and pick up my dear old grandmother very soon. Yeah? So my attitude is, don't litter. However, my behavior could be, if I just leave it here, maybe somebody else will pick it up. If it's only a small bit, so I can just leave it. So I might hide it underneath my seat or put it somewhere, hoping that nobody around me would see. So my behavior does not predict my attitude does not predict my behavior, because my behavior can be irrational and I can do something that I don't actually haven't had the right attitude about. And does changing an attitude change behavior? Sadly, no. I could then say that I'm not, that I'm now looking at the opposite way. Does that change my behavior to do something that I might believe is right or wrong? Again, no, it doesn't. So attitudes are a little unpredictable. So environmental attitudes, and this is probably the best word, they're biased. So a large body of research actually shows that individuals we don't form an objective belief, that we're not rational when it comes to our attitudes, because I might have an attitude about something, but my behavior might be completely different. So as human beings, we are actually very motivated to enhance and maintain favorable images of ourselves. So, we're really good at, and it's like, I don't let it, but it was that one time, but I've forgotten about it, and I just put it in the back of my mind, and it doesn't affect me. We're also quite motivated to view the world as safe and predictable. So we're quite, as human beings, quite short-term focused, even though we'd like to be long-term focused. And we look at the world, and if it's not impacting us, then it's not. It doesn't affect us as much. We like to say, well, our world and where we are is safe and predictable. So this can help us. This can affect our attitudes as well. So cognitive dissonance, this is another interesting area. So basic tendency for humans to maintain consistency in their thoughts and actions. So I just described that I'm sitting in a park and I'm eating my fish curry and I don't want to take it back to the car. So I want to put it in the rubbish bin, but it's too far away. Now that puts me in conflict. So dissonance is an unpleasant state of tension that a person experiences when their thoughts and behaviors are inconsistent. So I'm sitting there incredibly nervous going, what am I going to do with my fish curry bowl? And I'm going, I don't want to walk all the way over there and I don't want to take it back to the car. So what do? I'm actually in conflict. So I could pressure to reduce the tension by a couple of things. Changing the attitude. So I changed the attitude. Now I don't really care about litter. I'm just going to leave it here and somebody else can pick it up. Or justifying the behavior and then retaining the attitude. So it's only just this one time. I won't do it again. Yeah, so we do this to be able to get ourselves through the situation and make ourselves feel good. And so it's interesting, but it's cognitive, and we do feel that. So I don't know if you've ever felt that before, when you've done something that you probably shouldn't. You can do one of those two things, but you have to reduce that tension. So one of those two things will happen. You'll change your attitude and say, I don't care, or you'll justify what you just did and keep the attitude and still say, I don't like people who did it. Excuse me. So let's have a look at one of the theories, and one of the theories that we look at here around environmental attitudes is the planned behavior. So this is kind of a thought process that you would go through if you were, say, going to do a beach cleanup, and you've never done one before. So an attitude for me to attend a beach cleanup this month would be very unpleasant or very pleasant. So that's your initial feeling, that's your attitude. Yeah, this is something I really want to do, or no, this is something I don't want to do. Then you would look at your subjective norm. So people who know me would approve of me doing a beach cleanup. And then some people go, yeah, what a good idea. Good on you, Josh. Go out and do that. Or they would strongly disagree, like, ew, you're not going out to a beach and getting your hands dirty and picking up somebody else's rubbish. And that would influence me. That would influence my decision. So my perceived behavioral control for me to do a beach cleanup this month would be completely impossible. I'm too busy. I've got too much work on. I'm catching up with friends on the weekend, blah, blah, blah. Or towards definitely possible. You can see how it started with the attitude, the subjective norm, and now your perceived behavioral control. So definitely possible. And then the intent, not necessarily the behavior, but the intent. I'm planning to attend a beach cleanup this month. Definitely not. Definitely I am. Now, of course, after behavioral intent becomes behavior, and then reinforcing that behavior to get people to do it multiple times. But the intent is there to go and do the beach cleanup. Something may crop up and I may not actually get there, but the intent was that I would, which means that in the future, the intent would stay there, based as long as I didn't change my attitude. So please don't go around people who, please don't be around people who say don't go to a beach cleanup, because that will affect your behavioural intent. So come and do a beach cleanup. So some of the concerns we can look at here is that, like, environmentals are just not top of mind for most people. We think about it, we understand it, we notice there, but they're not top of mind. We're not spending our days worrying and stressed about the environmental issues that are part of our world at the moment. For most people, some people are, myself probably at the top of mind, I guess, and always part of what I'm doing. But when asked, a large group of people worry about environmental quality. So the economic growth is often prioritized over environmental protection. So we have to go, oh yes, I can't do that because I need to make money, or we need to do this, or we need to do that from an economic growth point of view. So moving on to our values, which are different than our attitudes. These are our guiding principles. And there's two aspects to our values. One, self-enhancement, which is what's in it for me, what am I going to get out of it, and that's egoistic. And then self-transcendence, and that's focusing on other people or the environment. So altruistic, focusing on other people, biospheric, focusing on the environment. So we have to look that some people are different between each of those aspects, and they have a higher self-transcendence or a higher self-enhancement, So self-transcendence would be honesty and helpful, etc., whereas self-enhancement would be wealth, success, and depending on what the focus is and what the values are based around that. And then the openness to change versus tradition. So openness to change being more daring, more pleasure, etc., versus tradition, which is humble and being more polite, etc. So where do we sit and what are our values around change and our values around being open for change? So moving on, we look at attitudes and then the concerns and then the values. So we've looked at the attitudes and what our attitudes are, what our concerns are, and what our values are. And all of these can change. We understand that changing attitudes really lead to changes in behavior. So we have to look at what changes there, and it's not necessarily going to make us do something different. We can change concerns, but that really leads to changes in behavior as well. And we can change values. So what do you think? Does that lead to a change in behavior or not? This is something that we will cover as we go through into the next part of the series. So thank you for joining me. This was week two, understanding social psychology and environmental attitudes. Next week, insights into behavioral genetics. This is a really interesting topic. Identify how to overcome behaviors. And the next one, awareness of recycling, and then how to consume sustainably and appreciate philanthropy. So this will slowly get more and more involved as to how your NGO and your nonprofit can grow and engage more people. So thank you so much for joining me. I've had a great time sharing with you around conservation psychology. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.